Hello again, this is Dan Ritchie, developer of Project Dog Waffle Howler, and I'm continuing my discussion on the changes from the free version way back 9 years ago in 2004, and with the new version, which is 8.2, soon to be 8.2D. And I am going to speak about some of the more specific changes that have taken place. Under the file menu, there's the browser, the batch browser, the batch processor, and I don't recall if scanning was in the free version or not either. I'd have to look into that. But the browser gives you some nice file management capabilities. The ability to view files, even target files, I believe, which are not viewable usually in the regular Windows Explorer. Um, but not only can the file browser manage files, but you can open multiple instances and put them side by side to copy files back and forth, doing different folders. In fact, you can have any number of instances opened, as many as you like. There's the ability to copy the path to the clipboard and make favorites. One of the big things we really wanted back when we were animators was to be able to set favorite locations that we would go to. When we were working on a specific project, we would have to always find these directories, these crazy directories everywhere, and it was helpful just to be able to set a favorite like you do in a web browser to go back to that directory and find the files that you need. And that is something we tried to support in our browser. And there's also what we call the batch browser, which is the same idea. You can manage files, but you can do it in a more batch-oriented way. Say you select a number of files and you want to make changes to them. You can do renaming, conversion. You can delete them, of course. But say you wanted to rename a set of files. That would be hard to do one at a time, but you can do this in a batch way all at once. This will show you the original files and what they will look like once they've been renamed. So I could type in my new name, and that's what the file will be called. You can change the number of digits on there, and if you wanted to start on frame 1 and start it instead of 0, you could do that, for example. Or you could just alter an existing name. Say these were BMPs, but say you saved out an image sequence and accidentally called them BMPs, but they were actually JPEGs. Whoops. Well, we can change that. We can just type in BMP is what we want to replace, and .jpeg as the new extension, and that will go and rename those. And it doesn't commit anything until you hit rename, so you're safe there. Same thing with batch convert. Just select the file format you want to save as and hit convert, and it will automatically convert those files for you, or you can optionally put them in a new folder. And the same with the other browser. You could also open multiple instances of this, put them side by side. That's a trick in Windows 7. If you move something to the corner, it will pop into that half screen mode like that. And it's very convenient. Of course, I talked about batch processing. This is sort of a little more difficult but more advanced batch conversion. You have a lot more file formats. Some of them kind of obscure, such as PDF, EDF, EPS, and whatever. Unix file formats and medical imaging and all kinds of crazy stuff. You can optionally apply some conversion, some image processing functions to them as well. That's something that did not show up in the free version. There is a number of additional image management tools that are available. There's also the frame your work, puts a picture frame around your picture if you're into that. Brush management has come along as well. The ability to work with animated brush has been expanded. An animated brush is basically a brush you pick you up, something similar to a tube that you would use in one of those other programs, but a little more advanced. You have the ability to apply keyframes, to change filters on the frames. You can manage them by scaling and rotating and storing them, and just a number of things you can do additionally with brushes, animated brushes. Also, the way you create them is a lot different than tubes. For example, a picture tube or something similar would be created from an array, an image array, basically if you had this picture divided into a number of different equally sized boxes. Each box would have its own picture in it, but we can do that. But normally, the way you create a animated brush is to create an animation and hold down the shift key and select a custom brush, and it will automatically go through and cut out an animated brush for you. And there's an alternate way of storing a brush and adding frames to it, which is another feature that is fairly unique to Howler. Um, I've talked about a number of filters. It would take too long to talk about all of them. The same with a lot of the other tools. Selection tools as well have changed quite a lot. There's a lot of new selection types, like select by shadows, midtones, and lights, and selecting by a color key. Another thing that has changed also is talking about animations. The animated swap image lets you load in a secondary animation if you're working on an animation. Well, we've talked about the swap buffer before. So you have an image here, you just swap by either pressing the J key or by using this button up here. And it's basically a spare image, sort of like working on the back of the paper, we like to say. But extend the idea into an animation. Now you have a swap animation. You can just basically take an animation that you saved earlier, load it into the swap image, and you can use that to composite or combine or displace another animation. And it's a very powerful feature. Um, and I've talked about filters that are animatable. I haven't really explained how that works. If you go to a filter that supports animation, quite a few of them do now. Say the color curves. There's an animate button. You just press it, and it'll apply that filter that you've been working with to all the frames. But there's a more advanced way to work with animated filters, and that is the animation timeline. And I'll bring up the animation controls, and from there there's a drop down item called timeline. And what this lets you do is basically select any number of filters that are available, such as sunset filter, for example. And it has all the parameters available at the bottom there. You can set keyframes to change these parameters over time and then apply that to your final animation. There's an undo button, so you can undo the changes that you've made, provided you've allowed that save undos button anyways. And that is just one of the more powerful features we have for processing animations. And this can be any number of filters that are available, even down to some of the 3D tools, such as the 3D designer. You can use it to animate landscape scenery, such as a camera flying through a mountain scene, or other types of effects like that. And once again, I'm going on kind of long without actually without actually showing you anything. I'm telling you without showing you. All right. Another thing that's changed since the free version is the gradient editor. We now have both the original sweep editor, we call it, the original gradient editor, which has also been expanded and improved. But we also have a new gradient editor that is a little bit more like a traditional gradient editor, where you can set stop points for a gradient, change the color, and move these stops around. It's relatively easy to delete them by clicking on the little X button as well. And that's the quick way of setting up gradients. Gradients are used with the fill tools. There's also the linear and circular gradient tools, which are a little more similar to the tools you get in Photoshop or one of the other programs. It just works kind of like you'd expect, a linear gradient or the circular gradient. They've all been made to work in real time, so you can see what you're working on. And there's a relatively new tool as well called the gradient grabber. Say you have some colors on screen, you actually want to make a gradient from that. I will let me start with something a little more basic. And I'll show you how you can pick up a gradient from the screen. I'll just click and drag over the area I want to pick up, and that becomes our new gradient. That is relatively new. There are, of course, the histogram is useful for photography and other disciplines. Plugins, there have been a number of additional plugins. A lot have been integrated since even the free version. So we're working a lot on improving speed and reliability by integrating a number of features. And of course, there are new color tools. There are colors by name. What differentiates this from a lot of the other programs is a lot of the programs will use the web color names, things like salmon and whatever. Well, we decided to use the names of pigments in a art store that you might get in oil or acrylic colors, which we thought made a lot more sense for a art program. So you get colors like lemon yellow, cad yellow, Indian yellow, rose madder, I can never say it, alizarin crimson, purple lake, cobalt blue, etc., etc. And we thought that would be a lot more useful for a art program to have those types of colors available for drawing. And I've talked about that pigment profile editor. Those actually use the pigment names, and I'll demonstrate how that profile editor is useful again. Say I wanted to work in a portrait of somebody. Well, I don't need the entire color spectrum available. I just need those colors that I'm actually going to use, such as Indian yellow, Naples yellow. That's the famous color used in flesh tones, I guess. So I'll select that, and as you can see here in this quick color picker, that now we just have a very limited set of colors instead of that full color spectrum that you would expect to see. That's actually useful to help us keep our colors more unified and more natural looking. And I guess my computer's telling me I need to wind it up again. So that's just a little bit more that's been changed since the free version 1.6, and I will talk to you later.